Hey guys, this is Healthy Life Designing. I'm your host, Darian, and today on the show we have a special guest. Brian Ahearn has joined us today. He's a man of many talents, and he and I have a lot in common. He's also the owner of Influence People, and he is an author, a recent author. And I'm very excited to have him here. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. We're going to cover goals and some fears. We're also going to cover persuasive selling and ways to go about that in a ethical, moral way. Kind of a different approach than what I think most people are used to. But I, for one, have read his book. I've spoke with him. He is a really great guy. He has a ton of information that he's going to share with you when we come back.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm a recovering addict. For 10 of the last 11 years, I've been struggling with addiction, homelessness, incarceration, and just loneliness. However, since getting clean this past year, I've accomplished more than I have in those 10 years combined. After attending outpatient counseling services, inpatient counseling services, living in a sober living house, and attending 12-step meetings, I've been able to regain control of my life and begin to achieve goals I've always dreamed of. Addiction can destroy lives in many ways. Whether you need help with childcare or financial assistance, everyone deserves a new beginning. Recovery supports are just that, supports for recovery. My life mattered. Your life matters too.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Healthy Life Designing, and our guest today is Brian Ahearn. He is the owner of Influence People. Thank you so much for making the trip here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and before we get started, I just wanted to kind of give the viewers a little bit of a history here of how we connected.
Okay.
I did a show recently on emotional intelligence, and the guest was Lisa White. Lisa is just awesome. And she and your wife are friends.
Yes, they work together.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we connected.
Yep. My wife sent me a link and said, you should meet Darian.
Yeah, and then we've talked on the phone, but we found out that we have a lot in common.
Yes, we do.
And health, fitness, kind of, I think our overall philosophy is very much the same. But can you talk about your fitness background? Because I find that very interesting.
Okay. Well, I got into weightlifting when I was in high school, like a lot of guys playing football. And I was fortunate that some powerlifters who ran a program taught us how to do it well. And my body responded really well to that working out. And I just got myself immersed in it. When I went off to college, the only thing I did was work out and study. And I was the president of the weightlifting club for 3 years down at Miami University. I was competing in powerlifting. When I graduated from school, I started competing in bodybuilding, and I loved it. I loved everything about working out, dieting, competing, everything.
And how the body works.
Yeah, it's your body is amazing, and it was amazing to see the difference when somebody who really knew what they were doing gave you instruction. I literally put on like 20 pounds in 3 months, and I'd worked out the year before and hardly put on any weight. But understanding how to eat, how to work out, all of those things, it made a huge difference, and I was hooked at that point.
And you also have a gym.
I do.
Just like I do.
Yep. I really thought I was going to own a gym when I graduated from school. That was kind of an aspiration. And I don't remember when or why I let that go, but it had occurred to me several years ago that I actually fulfilled that dream when I realized I do have a gym. I'm a gym owner. It's just in my basement.
Right.
But it's a really nice gym. And every day I get to wake up and go down and do something I've loved doing since I was a teenager.
And you definitely inspired me, because in our conversation, you've done a ton of different things with your fitness. And I'm doing boxing. I've learned some self-defense. And so I've been really turned on by the martial arts. And that's something that you have experience in as well.
Yes. So our daughter, when she was 8 years old, we got her involved in Taekwondo. She'd gone to a party. Some parents said, wow, you should get her involved. She looks like she has a natural aptitude. So we got her into that, and a lot of kids can peter out after a while because it's very repetitious, and it can seem boring. They don't understand necessarily why they have to do the same thing over and over. So to motivate her, I said, Abigail, if you get halfway to your black belt, I'll join. I'll do it with you. And that kept her going, and then all of a sudden I joined, and we started doing it together, and we ended up testing for our black belt together, which was an unbelievable experience. I always tell people, it's one thing to watch your kids do something and feel a sense of pride, but it's another to actually do it with them, to be side by side doing push-ups and all of the things that we had to do to get ready. It was just an awesome experience to do with her. And we continued to do it. She didn't want to keep testing. I ended up getting my second degree, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
But that's awesome. And how old was she at the time?
She was 12 when she got her black belt, and so for almost half of her life, she's been involved with it.
Wow. And I know that's a really crucial age. And so to have your parent kind of step down and meet you where you are as a kid is a really cool thing.
Yeah. And I think she enjoyed when she was a higher belt than me, telling me what to do when we were working out.
And you've been in marathons?
Yep. When I left the bodybuilding days, a friend who was a fitness trainer persuaded a number of us that we could run the Columbus Marathon. And I really didn't want to do it, but I decided I would at least try it. And all of a sudden I fell in love with it. And I was in 5Ks, 10Ks. I ran half a dozen marathons. I got to run Boston a couple of times. So I have always loved training. And what I've noticed is if you love what you're doing, then the event is just a reason to do what you love with more intensity and effort. So I just enjoyed it thoroughly.
Wow. No, I totally get that. What kind of led you to where you are right now?
In terms of my career?
Yeah.
With my career, I was working for an insurance company in Columbus. I was involved with sales training, and a former coworker had given a video to my boss and I. And it was a man named Robert Cialdini presenting at Stanford. And he was talking about non-manipulative ways to get people to say yes, to do the things that you need. And it was all based on research from social psychology. And for me, a light bulb came on where I realized all this sales training that I'd been doing, here's all the psychology that underlies it. And I really appreciated his stance on ethics, that this could be done in an ethical way. And I also liked the fact that it was research-based. I felt like I could really get behind that. And I began to use that video in training. And then as fate would have it, I ended up having a conversation with one of Dr. Cialdini's reps. And for more than a dozen years now, I've been a certified trainer on his behalf.
But there's something very special about that too, because there's only a certain amount of people that have this level of training.
Yes. So Dr. Cialdini is the most cited living social psychologist on the planet when it comes to the science of influence, and there's only 20 of us around the world who are certified on his behalf. So it's a privilege and it's an honor to get to converse with the person who is the guru around the world when it comes to that topic.
And that it's science-based.
Yes, everything that we talk about is based on research. It's not what worked for me or what worked for you or a hunch. We say, what does the research have to say? And that's what we rely on. And I think if people, well, it's no different than in fitness, right? I mean, if a doctor tells you how to eat well, if a trainer tells you how to train, you'll get more out of that activity. What I do is I work with people and I teach them what that science is, and I help them understand how to apply it in everyday situations, whether they're at work or at home. And the goal is enjoy more success and happiness.
And you've done a bit of traveling with this.
Mm-hmm. I have been down to Mexico and worked. I've done some work in Canada. I'm hoping to get over to Europe this year and do some work with a company that I've done some work here in the States with, but they're headquartered over in Germany. And for me, at my age and the stage of my career, a big thing is I want to travel the world. I want to bring my wife along. I want to help people enjoy that success and happiness. And if I can do all of those things with one thing, that's pretty nice.
That's very inspiring, too. And you go into corporate organizations, and you're a speaker. Can you tell me or tell the viewers a little bit about that?
Well, a lot of the speaking that I do revolves around this psychology and how do we take it and ethically apply it and utilize it. For me, the keynote opportunities are usually a foot in the door with organizations. I want them to hear what I have to say and say, wow, that's really, really interesting. Let's talk more about how we could maybe bring this into our organization. I also enjoy the speaking because I approach it with the same mentality that I did when I was working out and competing. I literally, when I'm getting ready to do a big talk for a month, I will be practicing every single day while I'm running on my treadmill. Because I feel like if I can give my speech while I'm running, then standing in front of an audience and not having to run, that's pretty easy. But it allows me very focused time to work on very specific things. And if I'm going to be in front of an audience, they're giving me their time, they should get something that makes them say, wow.
And do you feel like your background doing all of these fitness things, it kind of set you up, so you had already had this mentality?
Yes. It becomes very easy to do the things that you need to do. I mean, after you've competed in a marathon or you got ready for a black belt test, all the discipline that you have to apply to get ready for those things, all you do is you shift it over and say, okay, well, what are the things I need to do to be successful in this endeavor? I'm going to just lay out a schedule and I'm going to adhere to that schedule. So I've been very fortunate because those things are very easy for me. They're very second nature at this point. But I like the thought process of looking at it as an event. How do I get ready for that event? Can I watch my diet? Can I work out a little more intensely? How do I practice? Because again, I want to leave that and feel like I killed it, that it couldn't have gone any better. That's a great feeling. But then to know too that I can still get better. And the next time, what am I going to do differently so that I can give a better experience to the people that I'm working with?
And everything that you're doing now in the book and the speaking, it all applies. And that's what we're going to talk more about when we come back. We'll see you soon.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Hey guys, we're back. This is Healthy Life Designing. We're back with our guest, Brian Ahearn. And earlier in the show, we kind of dove into your history and kind of talked about all of the things that Brian and I have in common. And one of the things that I really like that we have in common is for one thing, that you're an author. And we have that in common because I've drafted a book. I've not fully committed to it. Maybe after the show today and what we have to talk about, I'm going to learn some steps and maybe learn how to do that. But talking about your book, I have it here. I know you can't really see too much of it, and I've post-it noted it all up. It's Influence People. How did this come about, and how long did it take to write, and what inspired you?
Well, the word people in my company, Influence People, stands for powerful, everyday opportunities to persuade that are lasting and ethical. So that's the subtitle of the book, and that's kind of my marketing and my branding. I don't remember how I came up with that. But one day it hit me, and it's a perfect acronym for what I do. As far as writing the book, I had been blogging for quite some time, and then I started recompiling some things and writing some editions and really started pulling things together, and that was about 6 years ago. And I fell prey to this lie that I didn't have enough time to finish it. I mean, I got a lot done at one point, and what I've learned since then is you don't need to have these 4-hour blocks of closed off creativity. If you just dedicate time, 30 minutes to an hour every day, or maybe an hour and a half every other day, you can knock out a tremendous amount. So between my corporate job and my travel and all the things that I was doing, I just didn't feel like I had enough time. But when I left my corporate position a little over a year ago, I made that my number one goal, that I was going to sit down and get this finished. And to overcome some of the mystery of what it takes to do that, I talked with some people, and one individual in particular who had authored a number of books and gone the self-publishing route. And it really helped demystify some of it. And then I hired a book coach, and I got it done last summer.
So it only took you about a year?
Once I really sat back down, and I had the bulk of it written, but once I sat back down, it was about 8 or 9 months to finish it.
Well, that's inspiring, because like you had mentioned earlier, I was always under the impression that you have to have these 4 or so many hours blocks of time. And so that's great.
But it really, I mean, if you think about, we've been talking fitness, you don't need to have 4 hours to go run or work out, right? 30 minutes a day will do wonders for the average person. The person who says, I want to write a book, if they just sit down and dedicate 30 minutes a day, they'll be amazed at what they'll be able to do.
That's me.
We'll use the techniques with you here.
Yes, we will. Can you talk about the book?
So the book takes a lot of the psychology that I teach, and it puts it into practical application. I don't go deep into the science, because there's a lot of really good books from people like Robert Cialdini, other social scientists, behavioral economists, that will lay out some really fascinating research. But what I found is a lot of times people are intrigued by that, but they don't really know how to apply it. And even when I do workshops, people can still struggle after a few days of, well, how am I going to actually apply this? So I wanted to write something where people could pick it up in relatively short chapters and go, I can do that. So almost every chapter ends with, how can you influence people? And it has that one takeaway idea that you could implement today and start to notice, are you getting a different result from the people that you're interacting with?
And one of the biggest things that are in your book that stands out right now, being it's beginning of the year, is what you call as PAVE.
Yes. So there's a principle of influence that we call consistency.
Yep.
And that is when somebody tells you they'll do something, it triggers within us this desire to have our words and deeds match. Most people don't feel very good about themselves if they say one thing and they do another. So the real driver is, first and foremost, I want to feel good about myself. I want to keep my word. And then second, I look better to other people when they see that I've said something and I've done something. So understanding that, there are some things that can make that principle more powerful. And those things are when we make a public commitment, when we have to actively do something. It has to be voluntary, it has to be from us, not forced upon us. And the more effort that we put in, the more likely we are to ultimately follow through. So that spells PAVE, public, active, voluntary, effortful. And if people can engage any or all of those, then it makes it far more likely for them to actually do what you want.
Right, because you publicly announce it. That's one form of, I've put it out there.
Yep.
And so if I back up on my word and I don't commit to it, then people are going to think bad of me.
Right.
And I like the action part. Personally, that's what I like. And I know when I have goals personally, or when I've helped clients with certain things for my job, is I find people are so overwhelmed because you might want to do all of these things, but it comes back to the time again.
Right.
And how is this whole list that I have going to become complete? I found for myself, it was just making 3 simple things. When I wake up in the morning, I love Post-it notes. the 3 things that I need to do that day for me. But so say that I would be writing a book. What could you help me with that process?
So we already know it's voluntary. You want to do it. You've expressed that you want to do it. Nobody's saying, Darian, you have to do this for your business.
Right.
You've really made a public commitment, right? You looked at the camera and you said,
Oops.
so now your viewers are going to hold you to this. You're not going to want to let them down.
The joke is so on me right now.
Right. And as far as the active, I would just say, what is one thing that you can do with some consistency starting tomorrow?
And then I have to tell you, I could type something up. I could make it a goal to have 100 words typed.
Okay, that's really good. 100 words won't take you that long. And then it'll get easier, and maybe in a week or so you'll be doing 150 words a day, but you'll be able to do that. That's very reasonable. And then as far as effort, the more that you do that, the more effort you put in, the further that you move along with that, the more you're going to think, well, I've come this far, I don't want to abandon it. So you've really tapped into each of those. And that's something that not only can we use to influence other people to do things, but we can use it for ourselves. So now that you understand this, whatever that next big thing is that you want to achieve, by maybe telling your viewers, this is what I want to do, and this is what I commit to do tomorrow. So you've got your public, your active, and because you're announcing it, it's very likely it was voluntary on your part. And then it's a matter of what are some actions that you can do with some consistency, some effort, so that you get further down the path and you say, I don't want to give up at this point. And so it works both ways, to help us get people to do things, but also to help us do the things that we want to achieve.
And so you guys watching out there, if you have a pencil, piece of paper, or grab your cell phone, put these things in your calendar. Put the PAVE in there, choose one of the options. And I like it for myself, because you have the 4 options. You don't just have to do it one way. You get to make it your choice, which is also, they don't realize, is a form of commitment too, because you're still choosing one of those 4 options.
That's right.
Can you talk about the selling and the ethical way you teach people in persuasion?
Okay. Salespeople have a pretty negative reputation. I mean, because they're seen quite often as forcing things on you that you don't want or don't need. Most people think about salespeople as these fast-talking, dominate the conversation individuals, but the reality is good salespeople talk maybe 25 tops 30% of the time, because they ask good questions. And they ask the questions because they want to uncover what is it that you want or need. The ethical salesperson might say, Darian, based on what you've told me, I'm not the right person, or our company's not the right company. And we don't try to pigeonhole you into something. But those questions allow you to understand that. They also allow you to get to know the person so that you can connect on, like we've connected on fitness and the things that we have in common. Well, it's far easier for people to buy from people that they like. But I always tell people it's not about me getting you to like me. It's about me coming to like you. I want to find out what we have in common so that I come to like you. And the reason that's so important is when you sense deep down that Brian really likes me, well, you also believe then I have your best interest at heart. And I do, because I like you. And this is the way you build the proper relationship so that you have a good experience with a person when you're selling.
And I love that. And I really do agree completely with the whole selling. And I feel like right now in the world, there's so much of that all over the place. And people, the way they go about it is, I hate to say it, but it seems very artificial. And then you build upon the artificial component, and it doesn't really lead anywhere after that. But if you're really building on knowing somebody and understanding the person and their wants and their needs, then it's going to normally evolve into something more positive.
And even if it doesn't end up translating into business, you never know where that relationship is going to go. And you mentioned my wife works with Lisa, and she got that job through a series of people that I had met along the way, where no business was transacted, but we liked each other. We stayed in contact. We looked for ways to help each other, and through this series of 8 or 9 contacts, ultimately befriended somebody who then said, "Hey, we've got this position open. Would Jane be interested in it?" So I look at building those relationships along the way. You just never know where they're going to lead. Don't get so focused on the one thing that you have as your goal, make this sale, and be blinded by the fact that there could be so much more on the other side.
Right. And another thing is something else that we talked about, asking questions, asking people to do things. And when we spoke on the phone, I mean, I'd read through some of the book about this, and you talk about how don't just tell your kids to do something.
Right. When you tell somebody what to do, you're not engaging that principle that we call consistency, because they haven't committed to something. And it's very common for people to tell someone what to do. And so an example that I share quite often is my wife might have said to our daughter when she was a teenager, empty the dishwasher. Then we take off for work. We could get home later that day, dishwasher not empty. We might go to bed, and if she was out and we hadn't seen her, we could wake up in the morning and dishwasher not empty.
Right.
And then you know the tension that comes with that. And it could have been averted by just simply saying, Abigail, will you please empty the dishwasher before you leave for school? She would either say yes and do it, which is what we wanted, but if she said, no, I can't, I'm in a hurry, well, I could say, well, wait a minute. Will you empty it as soon as you get home from school before you leave for work? And almost every time she'd say yes, and almost every time she would do it. Far more than telling her. Because once she commits to us, she doesn't want to feel bad about herself. Well, I said one thing and I did another. She doesn't want to look bad in front of mom or dad or whoever else might have heard. And so it's a very natural way to engage and get done the things that need to be done. And I will say this too, she doesn't feel forced, right? Because she had a choice. She said she couldn't do it then. She still needed to do it, but she had a choice in the time.
And that applies in the workplace.
Absolutely. Telling somebody what to do, to say, Darian, I need the sales report, is never as effective as saying, Darian, can you get me the sales report? And there's a lot that you can build onto that too, because I might say, Darian, can you get me the sales report on Monday? If you say, no, I'm too busy, I've got fallback positions. Would you be able to get it on Tuesday? And one of the concepts that we teach is when people say no to you, if you come back immediately with another request, quite often they'll say yes to that. People
Awesome.
can read the book to learn that.
Right, and all of this stuff is in the book. But we have a little bit of time left. Is there anything else that you feel is really important that you want to tell our viewers?
Well, I'm a personal believer that much of your professional success and personal happiness is contingent on your ability to get people to say yes to you. I mean, when you think about being in the workplace, if you're in sales, you don't make a sale until somebody says yes to you. If you're in management, your great ideas don't become projects until somebody above you says yes. And even if you're the leader of an organization, it doesn't matter how good your mission, vision, and values are if you can't get people to say yes and buy in. So it's critical at work that we understand how to do this. But when we go home, we've kind of established life at home is a lot more peaceful and happy when those around you more willingly say yes. And so if that intrigues people, I say pick up a copy of the book, read it, start putting it into practice. It's all based on research. I guarantee you that more people will be saying yes to you more often.
And I love this book, and I love that it's simple. It's a really short read. It's easy to understand, and you give an example for pretty much everything in here to make it even more easier to understand. But again, I love the pave. And you guys need to check this book out. Influence People, Powerful Everyday Opportunities to Persuade that are lasting and ethical. I think these are things that all of us in the world right now need to focus more on, more ethical, moral things, become a better person. Get people to say yes to you a little bit more often would be really great. And you guys have heard me already commit myself that now, tomorrow, I have to type 100 words for the book that I supposedly am now going to write. And if they want to find out any other information, Brian, where can they reach you?
Best place to go would be my website, which is influencepeople.biz. If they go there, my contact information's there. There's videos, podcasts, blog posts, all kinds of information if they want to go a little bit deeper with this.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate all of this. I love the book. I'm excited to share it with some friends and some family. And that is all that we have time for today. Thank you so very much for watching, and we will see you soon.